A woman who is definitely not looking backwards, but looking forwards this morning is Natasha Sideris. She's the founder and CEO of Tashas, the restaurant group. They have more than a dozen, much more than a dozen new restaurants on the drawing board, the majority of which she wants to get open this year. Natasha, it's lovely to have you in the studio again. Good morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
I've left the numbers to you. Tell me how many new restaurants you're looking to open.
So we're looking at opening 16 over the next 18 months. I'd like to get at least 12 open this year. What's frightening to me and the rest of the team is they're happening in quarter 3 and 4. So we'll have time to go on our Greek holiday and then come back and suffer. But spread across South Africa, Bahrain, and the Middle East. So we do have separate teams. We've got a team in South Africa of 14 people who'll be able to handle those openings. Of course, I will go. And then the balance here in the Middle East. And then we've got, outside of Dubai, we have Bahrain opening as well.
Okay, you say the balance in the Middle East. Break that down for me.
So we have Sharjah, Al Ain, Nad Al Sheba, Rak, which I think will happen Q1 next year. 2 actually in Rak. So that takes us to 5 or 6. And then we have a couple of Nalas lined up. And I'm not allowed to disclose the locations. We are under NDAs for them.
So let's go into that. So much to play with there. 2 in Ras Al Khaimah. Where are you putting them?
So where the Intercontinental is. And we are doing a bungalow 34 on the beach. So a nice beach club. Not too big. I'm a bit scared of very large venues. And then we're doing a Tasha's right next door.
Okay.
Or just rather behind it.
So as we know, Ras Al Khaimah is going through a bit of a boom. Al Ain, though, talk to me.
Yeah, I think Al Ain is a fantastic market for us. We are extremely successful in Abu Dhabi. Our store in Abu Dhabi in Albertine is 9 years old. And we have a lot of people coming from Al Ain to visit us. So we think that the Al Ain market's going to do extremely well. And again, not very large venues.
I'm surprised, though, if I'm honest, that you don't have more in Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi hasn't matured just quite yet in terms of having capacity to handle a lot more restaurants. We do have a flamingo room or a flamingo collection. So we've got an African lounge that we use mostly for events. We've got flamingo room and we've got a bar called Perlage and our retail space called Collective. It's taken time for it to pick up. And, it ticks all of the boxes. We're opposite Zuma. We're at the Valet. It's on Al Mara Island. I think it's going to take time for the market to mature. I'd say at 2 years' time, it'll reach a nice capacity.
What does it need to be there?
I just think it needs more people, more volumes of people to be residing there. Yeah, it just doesn't have the Dubai volume just as yet.
Okay, which has preempted one of my questions, which is we've got this massive population expansion in Dubai. How does that dictate where you go, where you decide to put your restaurants?
Well, look, I think it depends on the different brands. I think for the more premium brands, when we're talking about the Flamingo Rooms and the Avlis and the Bungalow 34s, those are we limited in terms of how many we would open and how many we want to open. So we're not going to do any more Flamingo Rooms in Dubai. We're not going to do another Avli unless we get a location for Avli Beach. And perhaps we'll do another Bungalow 34 over and above the one in Rak, because that one I think we can expand a bit more. Tasha's, I think, is becoming, and I actually think Dubai is becoming hyper-localized. And I think people are staying in the areas because of the traffic. So for us to choose a site for Tasha's becomes a lot easier. Because if you're going into a suburb, Tasha's can work.
Captive audience.
Yeah.
How much does it cost at the moment to open a restaurant?
So again, depending on the brand. So a Nala costs between 2.5 and 3 million because they're nice and small and more fast food. Tasha's between 8 and 10 million. And then when you get to the bigger brands or the more fine dining, I hate the word fine dining, but the more elevated brands, anything between 15 and 20 million dirhams.
How much of that is rent?
None. That's all capex.
Talk me through where the money goes.
Total capex. So capex and opex, so operating expenses, all of the training that goes into it, the joining fees that we have got to pay to the brand, which I also own. So I own the brand and I own the restaurants in Dubai. In South Africa, it's franchised. So we own the brand and then there's the royalty charges. And that all goes to OPEX and CAPEX and the build. And then, of course, you've got your rent, which sits at about, I'd say, between 7 and 10%.
What are you seeing happen to rents here for hospitality venues?
So there was a point where the rentals were quite soft, and I think it was just post-COVID, and you were able to negotiate with the landlords quite soft rentals. I think what landlords are now doing is they're giving free CAPEX, in inverted commas free, and then building that into the rent to help operators build their restaurants, because not many people have got 8 million dirhams or 10 million dirhams lying around. And then the rent sits at about 12% because they're amortizing that over your rental period or over your lease. And then they get their money back.
Are you seeing at the end of those leases rent rises?
Absolutely. There's escalations on every single one. More so in South Africa. Rent escalations are a lot higher in South Africa. They could range between 7 and 8% per annum, actually.
And on the other end of the equation, what are you seeing happen to the spend from consumers? How are we feeling confidence and disposable income wise?
We haven't seen any decline in spend per head. In fact, we've seen quite a rise in spend per head. But I suppose our brands are also middle to upper, mainly upper. So we're not really seeing a decline in spend per head. People are spending.
What about your prices and what you're having to do with them, what you're seeing to the inputs?
We do a price increase once a year, and we look at each and every single dish. We don't just put a blanket price increase across the board. If we're doing well and the food cost is right on a certain dish, we'll keep it where it is. And those that are taking strain because of ingredients rising costs, then we have to put them up.
Where are we on the cost front?
I think if you're an operator and your food and beverage combined is sitting at about 26%, you're doing well. Some people aim for 23%. It also depends on the quality of your ingredients and, what do you want to give your consumer? You want to give them the best chicken breast, the best mushrooms, the best cheeses. We've got, for example, at Avli, we serve the Dhani feta. It's the most expensive feta in the world. So then your food cost is going to reflect that because it's not going to be as low as what some other people may be able to achieve.
What are you seeing with your labour costs? We've seen the cost of housing go up quite incredibly.
It's actually interesting that you asked that question because someone asked me yesterday, do you give your staff inflationary increase every single year? So we give a blanket inflationary increase to everyone. So whatever the inflation rate is in Dubai and in South Africa, we give that to all of our staff over and above their normal increases if they're performing, which range anything from 5 to 8 to 10%.
One last question with you, and we've got 1 minute left with you. What's the biggest challenge that restaurateurs face this year? What's the biggest worry that you have at night?
I think again, I'm going to use that word, or let's call it the elevated dining, is very saturated in Dubai at the moment. And I think if in your arsenal, if you're a food group, if you don't have something that's a little bit more democratic, like a Tashas or a Nala, that can be for everyone, and you're only playing in that market, I think it is frightfully competitive. You only have to look at what's happening at Masal Arab, at J1, and the DIFC. I mean, we have restaurants that play in that segment, and it is extremely competitive and extremely tough. I mean, every single brand's coming to Dubai.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us this morning. We love speaking to Natasha because she is so open with the numbers in her industry. Natasha Sideris, the founder and CEO of Tashas, looking to open 16 restaurants in the next 18 months, 10 to 12 this year alone. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much.